Hey everyone. How are you doing today? Welcome to the final week of Nano Planmo. So I am JenniferBlanchard. I'm an author and a story coach. I work with serious emerging novelists who want to save time and cut years off their learning curve so they can write better stories and get published faster. And for the month of October, I've been doing National Novel Planning Month. So for anyone getting ready for National Novel Writing Month, which starts this Sunday, November 1st, I'm giving you all the tips that you need to plan your story before you write it so that you can finish the month of November with an actual story. And so this week I'm talking about your scene planning, so figuring out the scenes that you need in your story. And yesterday I talked about beat sheets. So just as a recap, a beat sheet is basically just a list of all the scenes in your story. A bullet pointed list a lot of times, or numbered 1 through however many scenes you have in the story. So maybe like 60 or 65, whatever you have. And then, so when you have that, so obviously I think it's important to do that first because it really allows you to take a bigger look at what you have already, and then you can say, okay, where are there holes? Where do I need to add stuff, etc. And then once you kind of have that going, then you should move on to, or you can move on to, what I call a story roadmap. And so the difference is just the beat sheet is very general and basic. It just gives, a quick beat of what each scene is, whereas a story roadmap really goes deeper on each scene, telling you the location of the scene, what the mission is, so the purpose of the scene, why it's in the story, the location, the time that it takes place, and then any other notes that you might have. So here's an example. This is the beat sheet for my story right now. Hello, how are you? So this is just an example, but this is what my beat sheet looks like. And it's basically just kind of like index cards, but on a Word document. So I can have it printed out. Now you can use index cards if you want. You can use Post-its. There's a lot of different ways to, make a story roadmap. This is how I do mine to start. And then I actually, in revision phase, I actually do a new one and I use index cards. So, but this is how I kind of started. So the idea here is just, you know what scenes you need, but now you can kind of go deeper on each one to figure out, which scene's going to have what information for your story, what other details have to be in that scene or things you want to include. A lot of times I'll like hear dialogue or something that goes in a scene, or maybe I've kind of thought about it a lot. And so I'm, got a very good idea of what I want the scene to look like. And so in that case, in the notes section, so again, I'll just kind of show this. But see how it has, at the top, it tells you the scene number, then the hook. So that's, the name of the scene, the mission of the scene, where it takes place, when, and then here's the notes I have for just what I'm going to have happen in that specific scene. And so that's really what you do with a story roadmap. So it just helps you. So when you sit down, you're not ever sitting down and going, well, what do I write now? You're having a full document that you can look at and say, okay, I know exactly where my scenes are. I know exactly what has to happen. And the most important thing, I think, is that you know the mission of each scene. And that's because every scene in your story should move it forward in some way, should add to it, should move it so that we're not just getting a scene with character development and nothing else. We're seeing more than that in each scene. So a lot of times in episodic narratives, this is an issue that people run into is, you think you have a story, but you really don't. And so a lot of times the scenes are just, day-to-day occurrences in this person's life, but not necessarily actually moving the story toward a goal of some kind. And you really need to have a goal. So that's why it's good to know the mission of your scene. And so I really like to kind of have this information before I sit down to write. It just helps me to come up with a better first draft. And that is, for me, a good thing because I don't like to waste my time. But this is what you can do with your beat sheet. Now, a lot of writers just like to use a beat sheet and nothing else. They kind of like the idea of just knowing a general term of what has to happen and then being able to just sit down and figure out each scene as they go. And then for me, I like to know more about my scene. So I don't plan it out in so much detail that I can't still sit down and be creative with it, but I have the most important information so that I know when I look at it, I can go, okay, I know in this scene, I'm giving background on this character, or I know in this scene I am, I don't know, whatever. There's a lot of different things you can do, obviously, but it will just help me to identify what has to happen in the scene. So I might have dialogue written down that I want to use, or I may have just important information that has to be shared, like, in this scene, please make sure, the character does this, or make sure the character does this. So whatever. And so, it's up to you to decide how detailed or how, simple you want to go with your outlines. But I think the more you know about your story before you write it, the better your first draft is going to be. And that just helps you with revision, not making it a total, a total rewrite, which would be annoying, and, being able to get it out into the world faster. So, because again, why wait? If you've got the story and it's done, might as well put it out there. So if anyone has questions about story roadmaps or, planning your scenes, put them in the chat box now. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap this up. Oh, thank you so much for the hearts. Whoever has all the purple hearts, thank you. But yeah, so questions in the chat box now, or I'm going to wrap this up. And I'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to be talking more about your scenes specifically, so what you should be including in each scene, and the information you probably would want to know about your scene. And then later in the week, I'm going to just give you some NaNoWriMo prep stuff so that you can have a survival kit and also avoid distractions, because those are really the biggest things that are going to get in your way next month when you're writing. So thanks for joining me, and I will